Sounds good, Daryl. So I'm mostly going to listen. Cool. But we'll see who's here, Daryl. But keep doing your thing. I got you. I'm glad you're here. I like knowing only one ear. That makes sense though at work. You can't, you can't have your full headphones on. So all good, all good. Buenos días.
Buenos días, profesor.
¿Qué tal? How are you doing? Oh, stay on mute. You're good. You don't have to talk. Daryl's at work too, so it's all good.
Okay.
I'll wait until 12:20 and then I'll get started. But Daryl and Martha, you guys are here, but since it's only two people, I might just sort of start by talking to the camera, to the people who are watching on the recording. If the class stays really small, then what you're going to see me do is much more like a lecture where I'll just sort of present some information. I'll take questions, especially if Daryl, Martha, and Rahila's here. Hey, Rahila. If they have questions, but if class stays very, very small, then that's kind of that's how I will adapt our lesson for today. Rahila, I was just saying, if it stays really, really small, you guys can stay here, turn your screen off if you want to, and then I can take questions. But really, and again, now I'll talk to the camera as well. I was thinking about people asking, some students sent me a message also saying, can we see an example, a student example of this type of project? So I have a middle ground. Instead of just giving you guys 3 or 4 different examples, what I wanted to do today was show a student example from a couple semesters ago, and then analyze the student example the same way that we analyzed the story, The Anthropology of Myself last week. So I wanted to look at a student example, show you that example here in the video, but I'm not going to post it into Canvas for you to download and have and keep forever. But of course, you can watch this video, rewind, pause, do whatever you need to do so that the student examples are helpful. Good, Daryl's saying sounds good, thank you. So we'll wait a few more minutes. But while I am here, Daryl, Martha, Rahila, just my, this isn't even a seminar. This is, I don't know what this is. Any questions I can answer before I sort of present today's material at all? Since you are here, I can answer very individual questions if that would be helpful.
No, thank you.
Sounds good. Everything makes perfect sense. So again, I'll ask it. Excuse me, I ate an almond and now I've got this like nuts. I've got this dry throat. Hold on. Okay. So I did have a warm-up question that I was going to put to the whole group, but again, since our group is 3 people, I'll just ask you guys, and if you feel comfortable, please, excuse me, I need to fix this. And when Chen's here, okay, 4 people, very exciting. But here's the warm-up. So here, like I said, here's the agenda for today. So my warm-up is to talk about your writing. And then I wanted to review some of the structure of the first person narrative and answer any questions you have. And then, like I just said, I've got an example, a student example of from a couple semesters ago for how students have completed this assignment successfully. And then I was just gonna sort of take questions. But what I'd love to do, if people feel comfortable answering these questions in the big group, or I don't know if you guys want to talk to each other, here are the 2 questions, which is 1, what questions do you have about how to write a narrative? Last week, we looked at an example narrative, we read an example narrative and identified the structure. So that was kind of a reading skill that we were practicing. But I'm just wondering what questions you have about how to write a narrative. And then my second question was, have you started writing your narrative yet? And if not, why not? And if yes, how is it going? Yeah, let's do this in the big group, since again, Ruba's here too. There's only whatever, four, hi Ruba. There's only 4 people. How about, will someone answer any of these, one of these questions, some of these questions? I'd love to just hear from you guys at the beginning before I start talking. So either what questions do you have about how to write a narrative, or have you started writing? And if not, why not? And if you have, how's it going? Unmute yourself or type in the chat, but I'd love to hear just a little bit about these 2 questions.
What a question do you have? I have a question, Professor, about this. Is it the narrative writing is we should write like essay, like an essay. It should have a introduction. It should have conclusion.
Yes.
Paragraphs.
I will say, yes, it is like an essay, but it is not a 5-paragraph essay, right? It's not hook, thesis, body, what, topic, sentence, conclusion. It's not that same structure, right? So instead of saying you have to put this part of your writing here in this paragraph, it's not, the structure of this type of writing is not like a 5-paragraph essay, Rahila. It's more, like I said, the structure is theme, narrative, and descriptive writing. So you need to just make sure that you have some part, all 3 of those different parts, types of writing in your essay. I think that showing you the student example will help. So there is a structure. It is like an essay. It is going to be paragraphs, but it is not, like I said, hook, thesis, topic, sentence, conclusion.
Okay.
Great question. Other questions? Thank you, and thank you, Rahila, for asking a question. I promise you're not the only student who has that question.
I have a question.
Please.
Is a narrative has a lot of describe stuff inside?
I think so. I mean, especially with a project, with a writing, if you were telling a story that was only 500 words, if you were telling a narrative that was only 1 page, it'd be probably hard to get a lot of detail. But for this one, I'm asking you to write a good amount of words. So I think, yeah, there should be, excuse me, a pretty good amount of detail. I do think that you're going to have some descriptive detail to even get to the word count, And I think, like I said, I think the student example will help. Daryl typed in the chat, for writing a narrative, do you mainly target words that let students activate their 5 senses? Oh, yeah, I think that is connected to when Chen's question there about descriptive writing, right? So like I said, one way to make a story come alive for your reader, instead of just saying, I walked to the park and then I got to the park, you know, if you include those descriptive details, the wind was blowing on my face, the sunshine was bright, and I could see the colors in the sky. You know, you do have that, okay, I can feel the wind on my face. I can imagine the color of the sky. I can see some of those five senses words really help, you know, when you're describing, when you're taking the time to describe the things. I think those five sense words really are helpful. So again, if you started writing, or as you imagine writing, because again, the first draft is due 1 week from today. If you're thinking, oh my God, I don't know what to say, I don't have enough words, my paper is not long enough, you know, go back and ask, did I describe this thing, right? If I'm talking about a room that I'm in, did I include some details about what it looked like, what it felt like, how I felt at the time? And again, we'll see an example of that in a second. So thank you, Daryl, great question. Other questions?
Me. Well, it's not a question. I just I started writing the story.
Yeah.
But like you say, I ran out of words. So it's like one paragraph, but then it's like you say right now, I have to go back and like describe more because it looks easy, but it's like you run out of words.
Right. I love that, Marta. And can I ask, answer only if you want to, do you feel like you know what your theme is? Do you feel like, it sounds like if you wrote a paragraph, you know what the narrative is, you must kind of know beginning, middle, and end of what you want to tell. But do you feel like you know what the theme is, what the main idea of your narrative is going to be?
I do,
Okay.
but it's kind of like where like at the middle of the paragraph it get connected to another idea, so and then I got confused. I'm like, okay, where I'm talking about this, but then I get into another subject. So yeah, like I'm basically here to see the example, and I want to the opinion of my other students, the other student, and see how I come out later.
Love it. Thank you, Marta, for sharing what your experience was. I promise you are not the only student in this class who's had that experience. So thank you. You're for being brave and talking about what it feels like to write. And I think you're right. So I think for many people, I'll just say this, and then we'll go to the example, because I think these are great ideas and great questions from you guys. I think for most people at 350 level, you know, if you're in this class, you know what a story is. I mean, you can sit down and type up 2 paragraphs to say, you know, first this, then this, then this, then at the end, blah, blah. You know how to do that. So I think start there, right? Martha was saying maybe you started just by typing out your story. I think what becomes more difficult is, okay, well, how much detail do I need to include? What details are important to connect to my theme? So I think Martha just explained that really well. It's like, wait, this thing I want to tell connects to this other idea I have. So should I write that idea here, or and that's why this assignment is difficult. I don't think it's hard for people to tell their story. And Rahila's great question is, one reason I think students find this hard is it's not a 5-paragraph essay, right? When teachers, especially ESL teachers, God bless them, teach essays, they usually say, you know, this has to go here, this goes here, this goes here. And I think students get used to that. So when you see different genres or different styles of writing where it's not always that clear, it's not that black and white, then it's like, oh, well, I know I want to talk about this theme, but where should I put it? And it connects to this other, and that's a challenge, right? I think the example is going to help. So my other piece of advice for really smart students like you guys is, try not to overthink. Try not to think too much. And I overthink all the time. Okay, I think too much all the time. But you know, when you sit down to write, if you're thinking too much about like, oh my God, where should I put this? It's easy to kind of get lost in your own brain. So that's sort of my suggestion as well for anybody writing anything. Great, thank you, Martha. Such a good question. And like I said, I think the student example will help make things more clear. Any other last ideas or questions as our warm up before I jump into my student example? I see Faisal says the assignment for the narrative quiz is not available. Huh? Is that true? I don't think that's true because I think half the class submitted the narrative writing assignment. Hold on. Always possible though. It's always possible that Jeff made a computer error. That is always possible.
I might be looking it in the wrong place, Professor. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it should be lesson 10, narrative invention activity. Let me see. I'll go to student view because this is good. So
I can see this, but there is something that I have to read for this.
Resume quiz. Yeah, you have to read the story that we read last week. You have to go back to sort of everything that we talked about last week. And if you're not sure, you can go back and watch the video again where I explain. But it says you have to read the anthropology of myself and explain what your favorite narrative was, right? So I'm not giving you reading quizzes. I'm not making you read specific stories. But again, to answer the invention, you do have to go to those course materials pages, right? All of the materials for this whole class are there on the homepage. And then this is the River Speaks is for poetry, which we're going to start next week. These were example narratives, like I talked about last week, me reading example narratives. And then all the narrative writing examples are here, where it says narrative writing. So Amy Tin, Faith Adele, Gloria Saldúa, Jamila Usman. The one that we read last week is the anthropology of myself. But for the invention activity, Faisal, you can read any of these, right? You could read Mother Tongue, you could read How to Tame a Wild Tongue, you could read Cracking the Code. You get to choose. You get to choose. So yes, you do have to look at least one of those example narratives.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Sorry.
Of course, no, it's a great. Like I said, if you have the question, I promise you're not the only one in the class who has it. I always, like I said, I always get nervous. Like, oh my God, I made a computer mistake in Canvas. So, anybody else about anything before we get to the student example?
Actually, I already finished my narrative essay.
Ooh, how did it go?
I don't know, but I just like I'm not sure because you saying it's not the same structure like before we write the essay. You know, not like the topic sentence and this is, but I'm not sure I write it is the narrative essay, so I'm not sure. So I have to.
Ooh, now I just want to read it. Well, let's hope, like I said, let's look at the student example, and you know, hopefully you'll be able to identify with that example, Wen-Chen. And if we have time, if you want, we could look at your example, or of course you could come to office hours tomorrow. We could look at it together. So,
Okay.
I'm glad you did it though. I think
so tomorrow. Oh, I forgot the office hours.
Tomorrow's office hours are 2:30 to 4:30. You can always send me an email, send me a text, and we can set up a time too.
Okay, thank you.
Daryl said, it looks like Daryl read Mother Tongue and said it was so relatable and he really enjoyed it. Yeah, I love that story. That story is almost, man, that story is 30 years old now, and I still feel like it's so good. It's so true. It's so, I try to change material so that it still feels fresh. So I always think, okay, is it, you know, is Mother Tongue too old now? But I'm glad you liked it, Daryl. I feel like she's just a beautiful, amazing writer, and yeah, and that's all I have to say about that.
Can I say something?
Of course, Ruba.
I wrote my narrative about my aunt. The theme was how doctors struggle when they get sick. Okay, because maybe people thought when the person is a doctor, he will not struggle when he gets sick because he know about medicine, about the treatment, no disease. But for my aunt case, she struggled with her because of bad circumstances, because of she was afraid because she was has the thymus gland tumor in the thymus gland.
Yeah, and I'll just say for me, Ruba, when Ruba says my story is about my aunt gets cancer. Okay, that's a narrative, right? That's a story. And then Ruba says, well, the theme of this story is going to be about how doctors feel when they get sick. And I think there's interesting ideas in there about sort of power, you know, help. I can help other people, but can I help myself? I can take care of other people, but can I take care of myself? I mean, there's some really interesting, for me, when Ruba says that, it makes me want to read the story even more. And I love that example, Ruba, for sharing. I hope you guys see that too. Like, it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to tell a story about my aunt getting cancer. It's like, whoa. And of course, cancer for most people is like scary or sad. We all have our own feeling or connection to that. But then Ruba says, well, I wanted to write about how she could take care of other people, or she was very good at taking care of other people, but it was hard for her to take care of herself. I don't know if you guys agree, but to me, that's very interesting, right? Like that takes a simple narrative to even a sort of more interesting and complex place by connecting theme and narrative. Does Ruba's really great example make sense to you guys? Does that make sense? Thumbs up or into the void? I hope so. I hope so. Thank you, Ruba, for sharing. I love that example. I love it. Daryl gives a thumbs up. Thank you, Daryl. All right. Well, let's look at the student example, and exactly like we did last week, I'll show it on the screen, I'll read through it, and what I really want you to start to identify is the different parts of the narrative, the different examples of descriptive writing, and of course, I think the most difficult thing for students at this level is, what's the theme, right? And where do you see examples of this author writing about the theme, okay? All right. Student narrative example. Also, you know, you guys, most of you have already taken a sort of advanced writing class, 325, 340, whatever. So again, the structure, the formatting for this paper is also perfect. So your essay, in a perfect world, your essay looks like this, right? Double spaced, Times New Roman font, 12-point font, all your name up here and my name in the class, and this was due last semester. So, all right. Here it is. Follow along with me. The title says, First Day of Class. When a person is born, they go through phases in life which involves change. It is inevitable to undergo through the challenges which either strengthens or weakens their character. Sometimes when one is able to gather enough courage to face the harsh reality of life, he or she could overcome any obstacle. However, for some people, change is something that is hard to embrace. There are things that we want to stay the same, like staying young and never having to grow old. Somehow we find comfort on those things that we're used to, and we don't want to let go of it. This reminds me of my first day in college at a foreign country. A gloomy, cold winter morning, January 17th, 2017. It is 6:30 a.m. and I woke up from a short 4 hours of sleep. My brain keeps telling me to get more sleep and my body seems to agree, so I stayed in bed. As I opened my eyes, my 7-month-old son was lying next to me with my arms wrapped around his body. I had to convince myself that after a long break from school, I'm going to sit into a classroom again. I graduated from college way back in 2011. I came to California from the Philippines, wherein I graduated with a bachelor's degree in nursing. After 4 years of prolonged agony, struggling through sleepless nights and hospital duties, I was able to graduate and thought that I was already done with school. Moving forward with my life, I thought I wouldn't have to deal with such stress again, but then here I am in Sacramento, California, and now facing a great transition in my life. A single mom who has to go back to school and take up a different course of study. I'm currently taking up respiratory care as an international student. As per law, for those who hold an F1 visa, the student has to take a total of 12 units for each of the semester. Being new to the country and school system, I had no clue how to make my own class schedule. I was used to block sections in my past university, and our class schedule was already set per semester. Whichever department your major is from, they already have a list of course subjects laid out from first year until you graduate. Upon admission, the student will be assigned to a block section wherein all the students who are part of it would be taking the same classes for that certain semester. Unfortunately, I had no luck with my class schedule for my first semester at American River College. The first thing I had to take early in the morning on a Monday was anatomy and physiology class, biology 102, which I hated the most out of all the science classes I took before. I'm quite anxious as to what the class would be like and who would my professor be. I finally mustered up the courage to fully wake myself up. I slowly and quietly got out of bed so the baby won't wake up. I was excited but nervous as I was getting ready for school. I didn't know what clothes to wear. I always kept in mind that, quote, first impressions last, which is why I'm quite undecided on how to dress up. I couldn't seem to figure out which top would go with what type of color of bottoms. I can't help but compare the way in the Philippines where I didn't have to worry about such a simple thing as what to wear because we had uniforms. Back then I had to wear a pink blouse and a gray A-lined skirt with matching gray necktie for every school day. I had to tie up my hair in a ponytail and put on red lipstick before going to class. My shoes had to be closed toe and black in color with at least 2 inches of heel. It was a school policy for women not to carry a backpack because they think of it as unladylike. Hence, I had to bring a big purse or a shoulder bag to fit all of my things. This was typically image of me when I was still a nursing student. My school had high standards and students who go there are expected to behave and dress up according to the rules and regulations. I've always hated the color combination of our uniform back then, but came to admire it now whenever I see images of someone wearing it. It made me feel proud that out of all the other nursing schools in the Philippines, we were one of the schools that didn't have to abide to the cliche rule of the white nurses. Typical nursing schools in the Philippines usually wear white uniforms. I was finally able to pick out what to wear. I chose a black long-sleeved shirt paired with thick, dark blue skinny jeans, which led me to another problem. What shoes should I wear? I was looking at lots of shoes in different types and colors. It was almost as if I was in a Payless store. My sister loves shopping for shoes and bags, which I benefited most because I get to borrow them. We have the same shoe size, so we don't mind sharing. As I was browsing, I had my eyes set on a short-cut boots because I knew it was cold outside. I grabbed a pair of black socks and put them on. I took my black Madden Girl backpack, which was packed with the things that I needed for the first day of school. Before leaving the room, the first thing I thought of was checking if I had my phone and wallet with me, and indeed it was. When I unlocked my phone, it was already 7 a.m. and I was ready to go. As I stepped out of the house, I felt the cold breeze of the air blowing to my face, which gave me chills. I went back inside to the house to grab a thick brown jacket. I walked fast towards the car since my father was going to drive me to school because I don't have my driver's license just yet. I got into the front seat and sitting on the driver's side was my father. People often say I was a replica of him, but a female version, including the long, straight hair. Coincidentally, he was wearing a black long-sleeved shirt as well. He looked at me and let out a big sigh. Our house was about 10 to 15 minutes away from the school. He's the type of person that doesn't like to be late. He doesn't like the feeling that he had to drive in a rush because he thinks it is prone to accidents. While on our way to school, it wasn't traffic at all since it was still early. As I sat on the passenger seat, I kept thinking about what my teacher would be like. If I'd make friends at school, or if the first day would be the same experience I had when I was taking up nursing in the Philippines. It was already 7:15 when we reached the college, and I didn't know where to go. My dad dropped me off at the parking lot near the student services area. I pulled out my phone to look at the school map to check where my classroom would be located at. Then I found out that I had to walk towards the back of the parking lot in order to find the science building. I had to walk through several offices to reach the last room by parking lot C. I found myself standing outside room 493 with butterflies in my stomach. I had no idea what to expect. I'm confused whether I should knock to see if there's someone inside or should I wait for 7:30 a.m. before entering the room. It was freezing cold outside, so I decided to knock and open the door. As I went inside, I saw a room packed with students and the teacher in front of the class who looked very young, whom I thought was in her early 30s. She was dark-skinned, wearing a black and red plaid long-sleeve shirt and a pair of black slacks. She was busy fixing her PowerPoint presentation, so I just greeted her as she started to take the roll. She introduced herself by saying that her name was Dr. Jane Mantee. She mentioned that she doesn't mind being called Dr. Manti or Dr. Jane or even Professor. She then handed out the syllabus and started discussing what was in it. Alongside was the course calendar, an outline that specifically showed the class dates and activities that were expected to happen during those days. As I was sitting there listening to Dr. Manti, I couldn't help but notice that the students were of different ages, colors, and ethnicities. I was surprised. I was expecting that just like when I was still in the Philippines, students are most likely to be of the same age, and it was unusual to have classmates coming from a different age group. Teachers who teach in college were in their early 40s or older. I was used to the fact that introduction amongst classmates was supposed to happen, and so that everyone would get acquainted to each other since they'd be spending a semester together. However, no such thing occurred. Oh well, there goes my first day of classes. I guess it's just different in other countries. The people and culture are different, and so are their practices. It's only been a few months since I moved, and getting acclimated to the weather took a great effort. I knew it wouldn't be easy to adjust in a new way of living. Somehow, that first day symbolized a new beginning for me. I had to adapt to a new environment and embrace a great change in my life, which helped me grow as a person. All right. That's our example essay. And we'll look at some more specific things up close here. But what I'd like to start with first is descriptive writing. This essay has lots of examples of descriptive writing. So I'm going to ask you just from the top of your head, what do you remember? What specific descriptions do you remember? Ruba, please.
Remember the time and the day at the beginning. At the end, she said something about the professor, his name, and how we want to a student call him or call her because she was woman.
Yeah, I think it's a woman, yeah.
And
Great. So Ruba says she remembers when the author used specific dates, the specific time, and also specific names, right? Great examples of very specific descriptions in this essay. Absolutely, Ruba, absolutely.
And about the weather, some sentence about what description for weather.
Good.
Other sentence about clothes.
I love it. Great. Ruba gave us a lot of examples. Anybody else? You can type in the chat, unmute yourself. What descriptive details do you remember?
And then she read it the professor, what the clothes looks like.
Good, good. She described her professor's clothing. Absolutely. I'm checking the chat. Daryl, she was describing her past school. Daryl, if you want in the chat, can you just type some of the specific things? What about her school, her old school? While Daryl's typing, anybody else, what details did you guys see and remember?
So she talks about when she leaves home on her first day, when she leaves home for college and getting into the car with her dad and then checking the time and then talking about her dad not liking to be late.
Good.
Because he doesn't want to drive in rush, and also getting to the college. So all those descriptions.
Good. I really love that example. I love that moment with her dad too. And I think it's a good thing. It's a good moment in the story to show the example between narrative. I got in the car with my dad, right? That's narrative. That's saying, that's kind of part of beginning, middle, and end, right? I got in the car with my dad. Let's say that that's narrative writing. My dad hates to be late because he feels like being late. When you're late, you're rushed and you have accidents. That is a description that gives us more feeling, more personal information about her dad, right? The other moment that really stood out to me, I read this, this is, I think, the third draft that this student wrote. So I've read multiple versions of this essay multiple times, but what I remember this time that I forgot, I guess, is I love that moment where she describes her dad's hair, right? She says, I look like a female version of my dad. We even have the same long, straight hair. Those are those examples of really descriptive writing after a sort of narrative sentence Like, oh, I got in the car because my dad was driving me to school. Okay, but my dad didn't want to be late because he thinks it, you know, then we get, I'm mentioning this because you start to see that connection between narrative and description, they really do go together. And that's kind of part of Rahila's question, right? Which is, from the beginning of class, how do I organize this essay? And what Martha was saying, right? Okay, one thing kind of connects to another thing and it's hard to know. Good. Daryl was saying in the past school, their uniforms. Absolutely, Daryl. There's like a whole paragraph kind of where she describes what it was like to be at her old school, including uniforms, and women couldn't wear backpacks, and lots of specific details, right? Lots of descriptive details in that paragraph. Great. Anybody else? Other examples of descriptions? There's so many. We've got a lot of them. Any other examples of descriptive writing you guys remember?
She described many times how she's feeling, like nervous, like she was cold, like nervous.
Yes, I love it. So absolutely, that's like Daryl's question about the five senses, right? So it's not, I always, I love to use examples of colors and scents and all those things. But of course, Martha, you are correct. Describing the senses also means how we feel, right? You're the narrator. You're going to use I, just like this student did. And one thing this student does very well is saying how she feels. And I always think, I told her this when we talked about this essay, I love this sentence. Where is it? It's so simple, but I found myself standing outside room 493 with butterflies in my stomach, right? Again, in one sentence, you get part of the story, the narrative, but you also get descriptive writing, right? Because this student also could have said, I was standing outside the classroom, period. But instead we get, I was standing outside, classroom room 493 with butterflies in my stomach. We get the specific room number. We get this specific description of how she felt inside. And exactly right, Martha, she's feeling nervous. So I'll say it again. I hope you guys can see the difference between I was standing outside the classroom, period, and I found myself standing outside room 493 with butterflies in my stomach, right? One is a fact. One is like a newspaper article, right? One is just like, this happened. And another one is a narrative. Another one is giving us rich, interesting details that help the reader connect to your personal experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's silent, so I hope it does. Okay, so now what I want to ask is, what's the theme? That's always the hardest challenge with this writing, I think. What is this essay? Well, no, let's do narrative first. So the narrative is a story with a beginning, middle, and end. What's the beginning, middle, and end of this story? What happens in this story?
Well, she talks about her first day of college.
Good.
I think the last sentence of the first paragraph, that seems to me the theme.
Yeah, wait, I went too early. Let's talk about the narrative for first day of college. Where? Was it in the Philippines?
In the United States, like in America.
Great. And let's go through the narrative really quickly, and then I want to come back to you for the theme, because you're right? But what happens at the beginning of this narrative, at the beginning of the story? What happens? What happens to her? She what?
She was sleeping. She wake up.
Thank you. I love Martha. You are the expert in the narrative. That's exactly right. I think, what's the first thing that happens in the narrative? She wakes up. Then what? Then what? After she wakes up, she gets dressed. Then what happens? She
thinks about what clothes to choose.
I'd say that's part of the descriptive writing, right? Let's just go.
Oh, narrative. Okay.
Yeah, let's just go very simple narrative writing. She wakes up, she gets dressed. After she's dressed, what happens?
She makes her hair ponytail.
Okay, she gets dressed. Let's do that. Let's do that. She gets dressed and does her hair. Okay, I agree. That's good. After she's ready to go, what happens?
So she goes and sit in her dad's car to
Thank
drive.
you. I was gonna say I agree. Next, she gets in the car. Her dad drives her to school. And then what? After she gets to school, what?
She, well, so she gets to school and then she's kind of nervous about going to her class or what will happen when she goes to the class.
Good. Even that, I'd say description. I'd say first she's looking for the classroom and then she finds her classroom. And then I'd say the end of this story, she wakes up, she gets dressed, she gets in the car, she drives to school, she finds her classroom. Then there's that moment I told you, that sentence I love. I'm standing outside the door. I don't know what to do. What should I do? And then she what?
Goes into class.
Go into.
And really, you guys, in terms of the narrative, right? In terms of the story, what happens beginning, middle, and end, this is kind of the narrative, right? Now, I love you guys started giving all of those rich and beautiful and interesting details because this student added those descriptions into this narrative, right? She could have told the story. It was my first day of school. I got up at 6 in the morning. I got dressed. I got in the car. My dad drove me. I got to the classroom. I walked inside. Like I said, that's like a newspaper article, right? Just the facts. I'd say that's the narrative. Daryl says she knocks, right? Good. We do get some specific. She does give us more step by step for each moment. I agree. But does this make sense, you guys, how the narrative is the most basic, the most simple way to describe the action in the story, and the narrative is all those rich, beautiful details that you guys, were talking about a moment ago. Does this make sense?
Yes, Professor.
Great. So now Fazal was saying the first paragraph has some good information about the theme. I agree. But let's talk about the theme, either in this first paragraph that I have on the screen here for you, or just how did the story hit you? I had a writing conference this morning with a student, and I was saying, think of the theme and the main idea as like the human heart of your story, right? What's the human heart of this story? So Fazal, was there one sentence in this paragraph that you thought was the most interesting, or what do you think about the theme here?
So to me, the theme seems the last sentence of the first paragraph. This reminds me of the first day in college at a foreign country.
I respectfully disagree. I think you're being a good student and you're thinking, okay, the thesis statement should be the last sentence of the first paragraph, but I don't think that this is the theme at all. If there's any theme, it comes up above here. It comes earlier in the paragraph. This sentence, I would call this as a transition sentence, as a way for the writer to move from the introduction paragraph into the next paragraph. So I don't think this is actually a theme. I think this is more of a transition sentence. But what other sentences in this paragraph stand out or feel important to you guys?
So the reason, Professor, I said this sentence because based on the title of the essay, like first day of class.
Yes, but remember, this is like Rahila's question. This is not a 5-paragraph essay. You don't need to have a title that is connected to your thesis, that connects to a topic. It's just a different structure, right? It's a different type of writing.
Okay.
So some of you guys may choose to write a narrative that has a lot of 5-paragraph essay structure. That's okay. I mean, I'm always going to help you wherever you are, wherever you're at on this learning experience. That's fine. But this is a little bit different because I think there's one or two really important words in here. Remember, theme really pops up in a narrative example as keywords, images. If you think of the anthropology of myself we read last week, we were talking about, okay, there were some keywords that came up for her own identity, being a woman, being a Black woman, there are some words that she kept using over and over again, right? So do you notice any words or themes that she uses? Let's just stay in these sentences. How about the first sentence?
We can say how person faces the changes in his life.
That's what Ruba said, the magic word that I wanted, and I'll put
because all these, the 5 letters, not 5 letters, 5 rows from the paragraph, it's about this thing.
Yep. I think, again, if you think about theme as keywords here, you could say, and again, instead of feeling like you need to know exactly how to plan your theme before you can start writing, don't do that, because you'll never start writing, because it's hard, right? You just have to get it down. But I do want you to have to know, what is this story about, right? So Ruba was saying the story about her aunt is about why it's hard for a doctor to take care of themselves. Love it. Very interesting. I'd say this story is about change. It says right there in the first paragraph, right? When a person's born, they go through phases in life which involves change. It is inevitable to undergo through the challenges which either strengthen or weaken their character. Now, again, we could say, okay, is she connecting change to challenge? Maybe. Let's find out. So sometimes when one is able to gather enough courage to face the harsh reality, this harsh reality is kind of connecting and repeating this idea of challenges or struggles, they can overcome any obstacle. However, for some people, change is something that is hard to embrace. There are things we want to stay the same, right? Even the words same and change, they're opposites, but they do clearly connect with this theme of change, challenge, growth, new things, facing challenges, right? Like staying young and never having to grow old. Somehow we find comfort on those things that we're used to. Also, again, this feeling of change, what we're used to, and we don't want to let go of. This reminds me of my first day in college. So again, she says change in general, right? Change is hard. Some people like change. Some people are afraid of change. Some people don't want to grow old. Some people want to stay young. The author's like change, 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 change. And then she says, hey, that reminds me of my first day of college in the United States. So that's like that sentence, Faisal, where I'm saying she's transitioning into her own narrative, right? She says, change, 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 theme, theme, theme. Hey, that reminds me of an experience from my own life that I want to tell you about. And in that way, we get this connection between theme and the author's personal narrative, right? Questions? Does that make sense? Stop me if it does not. Now remember, please go ahead.
I just want to say it makes sense.
Hey, that's fine. I know now with a group this small, and if it's a group this small and we're in Zoom, usually silence means no questions. I just want to make sure people feel like they have time. So we could say the theme is change. And we could also maybe say there's a smaller theme or a connected theme of overcoming challenge, right? Mm. This is connected, right? Because she says change is a part of life. Some change is hard, some change is easy. And then so we get this connection, right? It's like overcoming a challenge, overcoming a new difficulty. And in this case, of course, that difficulty is change. Now, let me ask this. If we say change, or the differences between the past and the present are a big theme in this story, where else does the author connect back to this theme of change, of past and present, or old and new, or change and stay the same? Where does she do that in the essay?
When she talks about the clothes.
Go on.
Yeah, so she compares the uniform which she used while going to her nursing classes back in her home country.
That is exactly what I'm so happy teacher. That's right. So exactly right. If you ask yourself the question, or me as the teacher, right, it's my job to read these essays and go, okay, why is this student telling me this story? So if I say, why is she talking about her old uniform? Because then she compares it, right, to this new experience. She's saying, ooh, right now is a big change, right? Because in the past I did this, but now I'm doing this. And therefore, so I feel blah, 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 right? So again, I'm so happy. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, and she does this throughout the story in a really, really successful way. At the end of the story, even when she walks through the classroom and she sees her teacher, she says, "Oh, I didn't introduce myself to the students because, in the Philippines we did this, but in the U.S. we do this different thing." She does that throughout the essay, throughout the narrative. But I'm so happy that that was your example, Fazal, because I think that's true. We get a lot of information about in the Philippines, we did this for wearing uniforms, but in the US, it's totally different. So I don't know what to do. I'm confused. I'm scared. Yeah. Good. Any other examples of comparing or the differences between the past and the present in this essay?
My God.
When she was getting dressed, she was describing like how in the past they wear uniforms and here they can just wear normal clothes.
Love it. Great. I love it. So if we think, I love it. You said it perfect. So if we think about, okay, the theme is change, well then I expect the writer to have examples of that difference, that change. And I think you're right, the getting dressed and the makeup and the uniform and the clothes, all those are examples of those differences. And again, just to use Ruba's example, since she felt comfortable to share, if Ruba says, okay, this is going to be about a paper about why it's hard for people to take care of others, or I'm sorry, why it's easy for some people to take care of other people, but hard to take care of themselves, then of course we'd want examples. I'd want an example of, oh, Ruba's aunt caring for other people. I remember this one time when my aunt, she did this, she did that, she took such good care. But in this situation, right, this different situation, this is what happened to show that difference, right? Because again, yeah, that's all I want to say. Other examples from this essay about how the theme shows up in the narrative. So Rahila, if you're still there, or anybody can answer this, does this help explain why I can't tell you that the theme is only in the introduction, right? It's not that simple. This theme, or the connection to the theme, it keeps coming up over and over again in this type of narrative, right? It's not like, oh, the theme is only in the introduction and then you're done. Does that make sense, you guys? Because that is something important about this type of writing.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, that's good. Now, I did say, so I have some of the same slides from last week, but remember I said the theme is introduced at the beginning. So you want to get the theme in there at the beginning. And this student absolutely did this. It's the first paragraph, right? The first paragraph, we get change, challenge, harsh reality, change, stay the same, what we're used to, change, change, change. But it's usually returned to throughout the writing. Hey, now I'm getting dressed and I don't have a uniform. That's a big change because in the past we did have a uniform. And then it's often synthesized or summarized or echoed at the end of the essay. So again, this is a little bit like the essays you're used to writing, right? Where you have an introduction, you introduce some of the main ideas, and then you kind of return to them at the end. So let's look at how this student finished their essay. The last two paragraphs. As I was sitting there listening to Dr. Manti, I couldn't help but notice that the students were of different ages, colors, and ethnicities. I was surprised. I was expecting that just like when I was still in the Philippines, students are most likely to be of the same age, and it was unusual to have classmates coming from a different age group. Teachers who teach in colleges were in their early 40s or older. I was used to the fact that introduction amongst classmates was supposed to happen, and so that everyone would get acquainted to each other since they'd be spending a semester together. However, no such thing occurred. Oh well, there goes my first day of classes. I'll also tell you right now, one thing we worked on with this student is in their first draft, the student finished their essay there, right? The student was like, done, no more. And one thing I told them was, well, you know, you do want some kind of conclusion where you echo, where you repeat the theme that you introduced at the beginning. And here's what she came up with, right? Oops, excuse me. So I guess it's just different right away. Different, change, stay the same in other countries. The people and culture are different, and so are their practices. It's only been a few months since I moved, and getting acclimated, this means learning new things to the weather, took great effort. I knew it wouldn't be easy. Again, this connects back to the themes of challenges and difficulty, words that she used up in the beginning paragraph. I knew it wouldn't be easy to adjust in a new way of living. Somehow that first day symbolized for me a new beginning. I had to adapt to a new environment and embrace a great change in my life, which helped me grow as a person. Now, again, you know, I gave this student an A in this class. You know, you know, I'm happy to give grades, but I would say if the student wanted to make this paper even better, in the conclusion, she could have said a little bit more about what that change was, right? Did she become more brave? Did she become more outgoing? Did she become more accepting of change? So that's one thing she could improve in this conclusion, right? She says, oh, this change made a big impact on me, right? This change helped me grow as a person. And as a teacher, you know, it's my job to always tell you how things could be improved. I would say, well, ooh, you know, it'd be really good to know how did you grow? But even though she, you know, even without that information, like I said, this is still an A. This is still an A paper. So does that make sense? How this author connected using keywords, connected back to the theme at the conclusion, at the end of the essay. Does that make sense?
To me, yeah, she talks about the challenges and she explains all the challenges in the
Good.
conclusion.
Good. I love it. Absolutely. Good. Martha gives thumbs up. Okay. We went fast through this one. We have lots more time. So I think I'd like to do another student example, unless you guys have questions about this one or any questions in general. Stop me if you do, because otherwise I think we should just do one more student example. Maybe one that's a little less successful. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing because I need to go into Canvas for a second. So give me one moment here. All right, let me pull up the other example. Like I said, while I do this, though, if you have questions, please stop me. Let's talk. Okay, which example do I want to show you? Let's show a B example. Eso. Hold on. The computer is being a little strange, pardon me. Good. Okay, great. Let's do this one. All right. Are you guys with me? Can you just let me know if you can see? Hold on, that's not it. That's not it. That's the one I want. Notice this student did not double space and they did not indent their paragraphs. Please indent your paragraphs. Follow the formatting you know how to use. Can you guys see this one though, where the title says linguistic narrative? Can you see this? Can you see my screen? Ruba says yes. Okay, great. So we're going to do the same thing, you guys. I'm just going to read through this one and we're going to start and I'm going to do the same order. First, I'll ask you to identify specific descriptions that are really memorable. Then we'll talk about the narrative and then we'll finish by talking about theme. Okay? All right. So, linguistic narrative. Taking a bus that will transport me to where I was taking the transfer that would take me to the Rafael Landivar University campus in Guatemala City was part of my life as a second-year economics student in 1981. One question I asked myself was, why? I left my studies to come to the United States to work without legal papers, not even thinking about it. I heard on the news of many people who were deported almost every day, but perhaps I would have more luck and it would not happen to me. For me, the question was, what was I going to do to communicate if I didn't speak English? The answer to the question was having to learn English. Yes, of course, language was a very big challenge. Well, this solution would have its disadvantages. The reason that I would have to work and I wouldn't have time to go to school. The only solution that I found and that solved my problem was this: seek help from a translator. And yes, of course, this was a good decision, especially someone who was a good translator and did a good job. This did not take long to verify that it was true because when arriving at the Los Angeles airport, I needed to go through the United States Immigration Department to check the documentation. It was a one-flight row from the Mexicana Airlines line that just arrived from Mexico City. When my turn came, the immigration agent, it was an American agent who does not speak Spanish, as she told me, taking my passport, "Welcome to the United States. Do you speak English, miss?" Quite nervous, I answered, "No." And at that moment, he called the person who was in charge of translating for people who did not speak English. He asked the question and the translator repeated to me in Spanish. He asked me what he asked me in English. "Does the agent want to know how long you will be in the United States?" 2 weeks, I replied. "What is she coming for? How much money do you bring?" It is these questions that I remember when I came to the country in which I have the privilege of living until today. After a 15 or 20-minute interview with the agent of the United States Department of Immigration, he thanked the translator for his help, told the lady to enjoy her trip. So for the first time, I had the experience of having a good translator, especially when I had not been able to understand the immigration agent. The problem has always been that when you do not understand the questions that the agent asks you, you cannot enter the country. You have to go back to where you came from. Therefore, it's very important that you understand the questions very well, and the help of a good translator is necessary because that will help you not to be so nervous by understanding the questions perfectly and giving the answers well. On this trip, my sister Juanita and her 2 children also came. Before arriving in Hayward, California, where my sister Lupe and her family lived, Juanita had promised my niece to take her to Disneyland. So we took a taxi to take us to a hotel. The trip had been a bit tiring, and especially the interview with the immigration agents. Having a new adventure full of emotions in a different country and culture and language, it was worth it. Waiting for the next day seemed like a long wait and a very nice feeling. Knowing a dream place like Disneyland, which everyone wants to come to know and enjoy its beautiful attractions, as well as meet the most famous mouse in the world, Mickey Mouse, the famous cartoon created by Walt Disney, and at the same time founder of Walt Disney World. It was formidable. The day had finally arrived. The next day finally arrived. Waking up early was one of the things my sister, her children, and I needed to do. The hotel served breakfast at 7 in the morning, so at that time we were already waiting for the coffee. Coffee, milk, orange juice, donuts, waffles, pancakes, bagels, and in a tray, scrambled eggs, and in another, hash browns was what the hotel offered for breakfast. Well, this solved the problem. For the kids, pancakes and waffles and a glass of juice and everything was fine. Of course, for me, coffee was and is mandatory in the morning. I don't remember if I also ate a bagel with cream cheese. I can't say if my sister had breakfast. It was a very quick breakfast as we waited for the transport that would take us to Disneyland. The hotel manager let us know that the transport was coming to pick us up. We were to be with one group in our line at 8:30, and of course, we got to the point where we had been indicated on time. When I arrived, I started walking because I had to look for a person by indications that I had. This person, that I do not longer remember her name, was going to be the one to guide us in the group. When I found her and told her which group was my group, she told me that she needed all of us to be together to give us the instructions. And I returned for my sister and her children in the same way. Another 15 people joined. When we had the whole group, she told us that she was going to take care of translating for us. Yes, of course, I needed a translator, a good translator, to know the future adventure that would captivate my mind and fill me with emotions, not only me, but the whole group. In her hands, she had some brochures, which she handed out and told us, please read them because it's important that you know the times of the attractions. During our visit, our translator walked to the front of the group, speaking with a microphone in hand about what each attraction was about, making my group and I understand perfectly and thus enjoy the attractions that the park offered. For me, it was a nice experience that taught me that good translation is possible and is also essential for people who want to enjoy the culture of another country when visiting another country. As my journey continued, I had to depend on translators. I had not yet reached my destination. My sister, along with her children, and I would continue our journey, which would surprise me with the results. So the next day, we took a bus to San Francisco, where my sister Lupe, children, and husband would wait for us. It was possibly 9:30 or 10 at night when we got to San Francisco. It was a great joy to see my sister again, since we'd seen each other for a few years. Knowing my nephew, who was a 9-month-old baby, made me very happy. Emotion succumbed our emotions between the joy of seeing us hugging again and telling us how happy we felt made us lose track of time. Up to this point, the trip I had not needed a good translator. In Los Angeles bus terminal, the person who attended the public spoke Spanish and told us that the trip was more or less 12 hours to reach the city of San Francisco. She also told us that the bus was going to stop in some small cities before reaching San Francisco. Because there were people who had to board or would mark in which city the passenger would get on. Possibly we'd not paid attention to the time. When we were interrupted by my brother-in-law, he asked, "Are you going to stay to sleep on these benches?" Then we started walking to the car. Knowing the city of San Francisco was a wonderful experience. Seeing the illuminated city crossing the imposing Bay Bridge completed the wonderful experience of knowing a wonderful city of a great country. At last, we reached my sister's house in possibly 45 minutes of driving. My sister Juanita had to return to Mexico City with her children because her husband was waiting for her. My sister Lupita convinced me to stay because President Reagan had promised if he won the presidency, the people who were illegally, that if they had entered on a certain date, would give them legal residency to remain in the United States. So I decided to stay with her support. One afternoon, when my brother-in-law was listening to a radio program in the city of San Francisco, we heard about a job that caught his attention, and he let me know immediately. Well, it was a good payment, and I didn't need to speak English. Let's see that job, he told me. We started the trip to San Mateo in California because it was where the person who offered the job lived. The San Mateo Bridge joins the cities of Hayward and Foster City, which is the longest in California. It was the second bridge that I met. When I was looking for my first job in the United States, when crossing it for the first time, it seemed like it would never be finished. Upon arriving at the address given to us by the person we'd spoken with on the phone, my nephews, sister, and brother-in-law accompanied me. I rang the doorbell, and a white man, maybe in his 70s, opened the door. Behind him came a Latin lady who introduced herself to me and invited me to come by. At that moment, I thought, this is a person who depended on the work being mine. The house had a very beautiful carved wooden door, and at the entrance there was a small room in which there were 3 white sofas. On the large sofa sat a man who had opened the door and his wife. The person with whom I spoke on the phone invited me to take a seat. She presented herself as the adoptive daughter of the family. She was also the one in charge of looking for the person to take care of her adoptive mother, who had been in a wheelchair for the last 3 years. Well, she had done it, but she'd found work outside the home, and it was impossible since she'd be absent and her mother needed extra special care. She explained to me that she was from Peru and that she had come to work with the family and they'd become very fond of her and had adopted her as a daughter. She had had to learn English to communicate with them. She also said that she was a lucky person since they promised to send her to school, and that is how she learned English. Now, she did not care that the person who cared for her mother did not speak English because she was in charge of translating what her parents wanted the person to be in the care of her mother, doing housework and accompanying her mother all the time. There was a very good opportunity to have a job and someone to translate the indications of the homeowners in Spanish. Well, I understood very little the English language, and so I spent a year with this family that honored me by giving me a job and allowed me to learn their American customs and learn my first words in the English language, because part of my time I could sit and watch television with the person I cared for. Also from the person in charge who did a good job of translation, and in that way I fulfilled my obligations at the same time, happy that the language was an impediment. She was also the one in charge of looking for the person to take care of her adoptive mother who'd been in a wheelchair for the last 3 years. Well, she had done it, but she'd found work outside the home and it was impossible since she'd be absent and her mother needed special care. She explained to me that she was from Peru and that she'd come to work with her family and they'd become very fond of her and had adopted her as a daughter. She had to learn English to communicate with them. She also said she was a lucky person since they promised to send her to school, and that is how she learned English. Now, she did not take care of that person who cared for her mother did not speak English because she was in charge of translating what her parents wanted the person to be in care of her mother, doing housework and accompanying her mother all the time. For it was a very good opportunity to have a good job and someone to translate the indications of the homeowners into Spanish. Well, I understood very little of the English language, and so I spent a year with this family that honored me by giving me a job and allowing me to learn their American customs and learn my first words in the English language. Because part of my time I could sit and watch television with the person I cared for. Also from the person in charge who did a good job of translation, and in that way I fulfilled my obligations at the same time, happy that the language was an impediment. Taking into consideration my past, good translation is possible has not been as difficult as I thought, since in narrating my past, what I've lived, and the way in which having a good translator has been essential to solve the problem of not speaking the English language. Okay, now this student passed this class. This is not an A paper. As you notice, yeah, Daryl's saying this is what the student submitted. Okay, so just remember, if you're worried about grades and stuff, by the way, I know this student very well. They would not be mad that I'm sharing this. They are beautiful and kind, but this was still the paper they submitted, right? The student still sent this paper to me for grading with these 2 paragraphs repeated, right? So again, if you're worried about grades, I give students lots of passing grades. But I still think looking at papers that are not an A, right? To me, this paper is a C. Other teachers might not pass this student. Other teachers might laughing. Other teachers might say this is an F, but I don't know. I'll just say again, if you're thinking, wow, there's some major mistakes, there are major mistakes. But again, so you have an idea of how my brain works. You guys, this student wrote in this paper, I think, 2,300 words, right? Now, even if this is not a perfect paper, can you imagine how long this student worked so hard to write these stories, right? Like, it's not easy to sit at a computer and type all this stuff out. Are there problems? Yes. Are there grammar mistakes? Huge grammar mistakes. Sentence structure? Oh my God. But again, the things that I value as a teacher are hard work and critical thinking. And I think there are some interesting ideas in this paper, and there are some errors, right? There's some stuff to fix. So let's start with one thing. I think I'll just say again, my opinion, that this student does beautifully is descriptive details. What descriptions do you guys remember? There are so many great descriptions in this essay. What do you guys remember?
I think the first paragraph, when she arrived in the United States, the airport staff asked her, welcome to the United States, and I can see your passport, and also can you speak English?
Good.
Yeah.
So Raheel, I'm saying those details you're saying there are quotes, and I think I talked about this last week, right? Anytime that in your narrative you say, I said blah, 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 and then my sister said blah, 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 and a customs agent said blah, 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 blah. If you're quoting someone, absolutely, Rahila, you are giving descriptive details, right? Because thinking about Daryl's 5 senses question, you're saying what you heard, right? You're saying these are the words that I heard. So absolutely, Rahila, absolutely. I'm checking the chat. I think Daryl says, the description about the place where she got the opportunity to work. Yes, I especially the beautiful carved wooden door, right? And she describes the bridge and how it felt like to be on the bridge, to cross from one side of the bay to the other side of the bay. Absolutely, good. What other descriptive details do you remember?
I'll give it a try, Professor Jeff. I think
Please.
when she arrived to San Francisco, she's describing the cities.
Yes, there's one where she says illuminated. I think she uses this luminosa. She uses this beautiful synonym from English, Spanish into English. I'll also say, I think there's a little bit too much Google Translate here. Just because I speak Spanish, I can see Spanish sentences that just got translated directly into English, or conocer being used for know instead of learning or meeting. Where's that example about San Francisco, Nora? Because I think you're right.
It was somewhere in the middle.
After Disneyland. Oh, she says she saw her sister Lupe. The description of the bus. This one, yeah.
Yeah.
Knowing, I'd say learning, meeting, not conociendo, the city of San Francisco, seeing the illuminated city, crossing the imposing bridge, completed the wonderful experience of knowing a wonderful city in a great country. Yeah, lots of details and really beautiful images of San Francisco, absolutely. Good, other descriptive details.
The food.
Ah, Marta, my favorite is, yeah, what do you remember?
The eggs, the hash brown, I think, yeah, that.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe it's because I love food so much. I agree, Martha. The part that I told this student as well, the part that really stands out is, oh my God, the waffles and the juice and the coffee. And then that really like sweet, fun moment where she's like, the student, the kids had orange juice, but of course I had coffee. I think that whole section is such a lovely example of narrative and details, right? We got up in the morning, we were so excited, we had breakfast, but for breakfast, and then you get all those details about the food. I think really, really beautiful descriptive writing in that paragraph about the food. Good. Anybody else? How about one or two more people? Other examples of descriptions? Because the descriptions, like I said, are the part that this whole paragraph, if you're watching the video or reviewing, I think this whole paragraph here is just phenomenal, just phenomenal. Okay, now here's where we're going to start to talk about some of the issues, right? Some of the challenges in this essay. If we said the last example, the essay that got an A was, the narrative was, I woke up, I got dressed, I got in the car, I found the classroom, I went into the classroom. Simple, clear, easy to understand narrative. What's the narrative in this essay?
How does she arrive to the United States?
I think that's one of them. Yeah. What else though? So we get a story about she arrives in the U.S. I agree. What else do we get?
She experienced some obstacle on the way.
Yep. Good. Good. So let's say this though. She tells a story about arriving in America. She also tells a story about visiting Disneyland, right? I'm going to just tell you right now, there's too many narratives in this essay, right? What I told this student is you got to choose one or two. You can't tell, like, I think there's at least 5 in here, right? So a story about her arriving in the US, a story about her going to Disneyland. What other stories?
Finding a job.
Good, the job, absolutely. What were we talking about?
Translator.
Good, then there's, okay, good. Maybe we're kind of thinking about theme here, because there's this theme of translation. Absolutely.
Meeting her sister.
Good, meeting her sister. We get that story about her, the bus trip to San Francisco. We got all this stuff about San Francisco. So we've got, she leaves Guatemala, she gets to the US. We've got, she sees her sister and they go to Disneyland. We've got, she gets on a bus and she goes to San Francisco. We've got, she looks for a job and she meets this new family. Okay, so we've got at least 4 narratives. I think it's too much. Because if I ask you guys, what's the main narrative? Like, what's the most important narrative in this story? What would you guys say?
Coming to United States.
Interesting. I'll tell you, I don't know, right? So I think that's why this essay is not an A, is because, well, this is what I told the student, is like, it's not focused enough. And maybe the narrative is about her arriving in the US feels like the most important for you, but maybe another student was like, well, I really want more information about the trip to Disneyland. Oh, I want to know about your first time in San Francisco. Well, I want to know about what it was like to work with that family. She says she worked with them for a year, right? So I just think there's too much narrative, right? Like, you could write one week, if Noor was saying he likes the story about arriving in the US, great. Well, just write that narrative, right? It's only write 1,000 words about, instead of writing 2,300 words about 4 narratives, give me 1,000 words about arriving in the United States, right? Because if you're trying to do too much, if you're telling too many narratives in your essay, what happens is the theme is not clear. I think that's a big problem with this essay, is the theme of this essay, the why does this matter, is not clear. It's kind of there. The reader can kind of make a guess about it. I mean, I know this student pretty well, so I kind of knew what she wanted to say, but it's not in the essay. Does that make sense?
Yes, but
Unlike, oh, go ahead. Yeah, please.
So, and according to the essay, so if she write this narrative, just one narrative, like for example, she can say, how did she get to United States, and that'll be just enough.
I think it would be enough as long as there was a clear theme, because remember, in the first example that we did together today, like I said, the keywords that this student put in the first paragraph: change, challenge, growth, change, different, same. I mean, the first paragraph introduces this theme in a really clear and specific way, right? That she's telling the reader, change, change. My story is about change. But when we don't have that at the beginning of this essay, when we just go straight into the narrative, for me, at least, again, yeah, for me, the way an American reader will read these essays is, wait, what's this story about? So is this story about, is this about immigration? Is this about your country? Is this about language? Is this about change? Is it also about change? Is it about fear? Is it, what is this about? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Any other
But she is
ideas?
focusing on need a translator, and she is not good in English.
I agree.
So she gave all these examples and focusing on the need of translator.
Yes, I agree. I think you are
But
right.
the examples are more. So
Yeah.
maybe if she give less example and maybe talk about the example a little more. So
that's Ruba just said it perfectly. If you're in the room with us now, if you're watching the recording, rewind and listen to Ruba. I think you're right, Ruba, like I said. And for me as the teacher, I've done this job long enough. I know what you guys are trying to say, right? I can sort of see the intention, but it's also my job to tell you, well, your intention is not really clear yet. I think you're right, Ruba. And I think instead of telling 4 different narratives, if she had maybe just told 1 or 2 and kept going back to this idea of language translation, or even how she learned English over time, right? Or at the beginning, when I didn't know English, I was afraid, but when I learned English, I felt safe. Whatever that is, right? We would know much more clearly what's the main idea of this story. So I think you're right, Ruba. And a word that you'll probably see when I'm giving you feedback or hear me say is focus, 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 right? When you put your theme at the beginning and at the end, you are helping to give the focus to your essay. You're helping, like I said, you're putting a big sign up for me, for your reader saying, hey, this story is going to be about translation. Great, okay. Then you tell the story. And then at the end you say, hey, this story was all about translation. Great, you know, but if you don't do that, it feels unfocused. It doesn't feel as clear. Yeah.
So in this case, like you said, the theme was more pointing to a translator, but she lost that theme when they go into different directions.
I think so. I mean, yeah, I'm the one who gives the grade. So I guess I I am the one with the power, and I'm saying yes, yes. I'm curious now. I don't want to hear about grammar. We all know there's lots of grammar errors. But what was it like for you guys to sit and listen? Like, did everything make sense, or how did it feel? Did you ever start going, wait, what is she talking about? What did it feel like for you guys to listen to it and read it?
Well, let me start. I personally feel like I said, when this is done, I'm gonna ask Professor Jeff, like, what does those commas mean? Am I missing something?
I agree. No, you're not.
A lot of commas that I couldn't figure out why is there.
Yes, the commas. That's just straight up Spanish to English sentence structure translation. Martha knows what I'm talking about. In Spanish writing, sentences can be much, much longer than in English. So in Spanish, it's very normal to just keep going, put a comma, keep going. You know, or sometimes you don't even need a comma. So yeah, a famous famous error for Spanish to English writers is that their English sentences are way too long and way too many commas.
Okay. And I think the flow, I like the flow, you know, like listen to, I mean, you're a good reader too. I just, how it flow, you know.
Interesting. Yeah, I think, okay, I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, good. Other responses. What did you notice just listening to this story? And maybe we could even say, I hope that you can feel the difference between the first essay and this one. I hope you feel like, oh, the first one was much more focused and much more clear, and the second one was not. Do you agree or disagree or?
Yeah, like for me, the first one, it was like very interesting. Like I wanted to know, like, okay, keep reading. What happened next? And for the second one, it was more like, what did she say? Where is she at? Where is she? Wait, like, yeah, like, and then you just looking like, okay, when is it gonna end? Or like, it wasn't very attractive. Like, you want that story to finish, and the other one, no, you wanted to keep going, like keep reading.
Good, I agree. I agree with what Martha said, and again, I'm going to keep saying the same word, but what Martha just said is what I mean when I say focused, right? If the essay is focused, if there's a clear focus from the writer, if the writer knows what the theme is and is trying to keep that theme going for the whole narrative, then you, the reader, want it to keep going. But if there's not a clear theme, then what happens is, like I said, the reader, you're going to go, wait, what, huh? Why do I care? What's happening? Why is she talking about this? Who cares? And that's why I keep saying over and over again, when I grade your first draft, what I'm really looking for, you guys, is theme. Is there a clear theme? Is there a clear reason, purpose for this story? And if there's not, you're going to get a lower grade at first, and then you can revise and resubmit, because I'll say, great, the narrative makes sense. You've got great details, but who cares, right? What's the theme? And that's the biggest challenge for students at the beginning. And Martha described it perfectly, right? When the theme isn't clear, the reader's going, wait, what? Who cares? When is this going to be over? Good. What else? Other ideas, other questions? The difference between the two. Hopefully it's clear.
I missed the first one because I logged in late somehow.
All good.
The class I was busy with other things.
All good. All good.
I-
The recording will be there for you in, you know, an hour or so.
Yes. The logic on this essay, I was getting a little confused. Like she was I thought she already met her sisters, and then go into another program, and she's not even met the sister yet. So it was like it was not logically set up correctly.
I agree. I agree. I agree also. Again, I think sometimes it's good to see examples of essays that don't work because it's true. So that I would say that Nora is connected to the narrative, right? So that's an example of unclear narrative. If I say, I went to meet my sister, I met my sister, then we took a trip together, but I didn't meet my sister. That's like, wait, what? That is not beginning, middle, and end, right? Like that's why when I introduce on this slide, like we talked about last week, when I say narrative, when I say beginning, middle, and end, Martha gives the laughing face. It feels easy, right? Everyone knows what a story is, but that doesn't mean it's not always easy to get that onto the page. So when you're sitting to write, and if you after you write and you read what you wrote, I love that. Nor ask yourself, like, is this clear? Did I explain this clear? Is it clear what happened first, second, and third? Because if it's not, then I think that, like you just said, Nor, and like Martha was saying, if the reader is reading the story and goes, wait, what is even happening? Then what happens? It's like a TV show, right? We turn it off, right? And it's the same thing with the book. If you're reading a book and you're like, I don't even know what is happening, you stop reading, so I think that's important to keep in mind, even for something that feels as easy as the narrative writing. Oh, I love these comments. Good. And Nor, yeah, like I said, you can go back and we talked about the first essay for about 20 or 30 minutes. So you can see, like I said, that was an A. That paper is an example of an A essay. This is a C. She revised and resubmitted and got a B. But I'd say, I'm still going to pass this student. They worked so hard and there's some good ideas, but it's just not clear yet. It's not clear yet.
And those can be under the narrative in the canvas, right?
Yep. Oh no, will I post these student documents? I said that at the beginning. No, I will not give you guys these documents. But if you want to watch the video, they're here, you can access them, but I don't want to just give you the files.
Got it. Thank you.
I talked about this a little bit last week, but I'm always very torn. And torn means like, I'm not sure, I'm indecisive about giving student examples. I think they're so helpful, but then what happens is if I show students, if I say, here's a student example of an A, then I get 25 essays that look exactly like the example. And that's so boring. I feel like it's boring for you guys. There's 1,000 different ways to write a good narrative essay, and I don't want you to feel like I show you one example and then that's just how you write it, So this is my solution. I'll show you some examples and you can watch the video as many times as you want, but I don't want to just give you the file so you can just copy the structure. Anyway, that's more examples of how Professor Jeff's thinking. Other questions or ideas about these two essays? What you like, what you didn't like, similarities and differences. Because that's what I've got. That's what I've got today. If you don't want to talk about these two essays anymore, then with the time we have left, I guess I would ask, what questions do you have now? What questions do you have after doing this? Or Martha, Aruba, if people have examples, do you guys, if you have them, do you want to share and look at them together? We've got about a half hour. I'm happy to end early, but I also, if people are nervous about what to do before they start writing, I'm happy to answer your questions. You're all here with me.
For me, sorry, after I see the examples, I think I'm gonna change my theme and my subject.
Okay.
That's why I was laughing. I wasn't laughing because the writing. I was laughing because I have the same mistakes as the second one. Like sometimes my sentence are too long, and then I jump from one subject to another. So that's what I was laughing. I wasn't laughing about the student that right now.
No, I didn't feel like you were. I didn't feel like you were at all. And again, I know this student very well, and she wouldn't, it's not, anytime I'm showing you a student essay, it's not to make students feel bad. I think it's because we learn from mistakes and we learn from other students' experiences. So I appreciate you saying that too, Martha. Yeah, so I love what you said there too, jumping around. Absolutely. So Martha's thinking, okay, I might want to change my theme or have a more clear or specific theme so I'm not jumping around. Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to describe this essay that's on the screen now. Yeah, jumps around a little too much. Good. Other ideas or questions about your own paper or about just this type of writing? Does anyone have an example that they want to look at together right now?
Actually, I finished my essay already, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure my theme is clear or not.
Do you want to do you want to look at it together? We can, if you want, I can turn the recording off if you don't want other students to see it. You don't have to. This is, it could be helpful, not just to you, but to the whole class.
I think that I can share with the people, but
Yeah, that would be amazing. You would be helping all of your classmates. If you are willing to, I promise I will help you right now. But if you're willing to do it with everybody, you will be helping the whole class. Daryl hasn't started. That's okay, Daryl, not a problem at all. Okay, do you have the document on your computer, Wenchen? Can I let you share your screen?
yes, I just need to hit the share screen, right? But
yes, and then I think I just need to give you permission to do that. Hold on. Share computer.
I hope it's not very bad.
You're being very brave and we love it. I'm telling you, everyone, if you're not here, you're watching the recording, say, thank you, Wenchen, you are a hero. Okay, please go ahead. You should be able to, wait.
Oh, no, still not.
Computer stuff. Okay, now?
Oh, there you go.
Eso.
Just 1 second. Can you guys see my?
We can. Words don't come easily. I love it.
Yes.
Do you want to read or do you want me to read or how do you want to do it?
You read.
If I really wanted to be a good English teacher, I should make you do it. But no, I'm happy to do it. All right. Words don't come easily. The sun. I don't know how many days it has risen. In spring and autumn, I don't know how many reincarnations have been made back and forth. Even the growth rings of the pine and cypress trees on the roadside have increased several times, and even the small flowers in the cracks in the stone have fallen several times. Mother shines on her children like the sun and teaches them to be optimistic and strong. When they were young, the children grew up happily under the protection of their mothers. When they grew up, the children faced hardships along with the optimism and strength taught by their mothers. That strength and optimism are like a beam of light illuminating our journey. For my mother, I can easily say the words that make my mom sad. However, some words have been hidden in my mind for a long time, but I cannot express to my mother, such as, I love you, Mom. Wow, and Chan, wow. On December 1st, I suddenly realized the importance of expression. Perhaps it is a very simple sentence for many people to say, I love you to their mother, but it is a very difficult thing for me. Especially, I grew up in China. I believe that many Chinese children never told their mothers that I love you. People take care of each other in their own way. I grew up in this environment. You can imagine how difficult it is for me. When I was in high school, I kept complaining about my parents until one day I suddenly realized that my mother really loved me, and I wanted to express my love to my mother. I don't want to complain to my parents without telling them or love my mother in my own way. I want to speak out. Finally, I did it. I love it. So I'm just going to say, now here's a window into how Jeff is thinking as I'm grading. So I'm going to think, now I'm thinking right now, okay, beautiful introduction, almost like poetic, this image of the sun. I love it. I get this strong emotion as a reader. Those first two paragraphs really set things up very nicely. And I'm thinking, I'm imagining, okay, Wen Chen's going to tell me the story of the first time she said, I love you to her mother. So I think I get this idea of theme at the beginning. I also have an idea of what the narrative will be. So that's what I'm thinking as a, that's what I'm thinking. Okay. So I remember when I was in high school in China, mother is a very busy woman. I go to work early in the morning and come home very late. Sometimes she had to go on business trips and I couldn't even see her for 10.5 months. She only gave me money every month. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Wen Chen. She went to work early in the morning, right? And you might as well change go to went now. Yeah, thank you. She only gave me money every month and let my grandparents take care of me. I've always complained about this. She always said on the phone, I'll be back soon. But no one knows the exact date or when this soon will end. Every time I hang up, I'm disappointed. I told myself, you already know the answer. Why did you call and ask? I always think maybe the company is her biological daughter. I've been wondering if my mother picked me up from the recycling bin. She doesn't care about me at all. Until I found some scratches on the floor of the room that I knew. Love. There will be no excuses. Every child needs the company of his parents as he grows up. While making money, don't ignore your child's feelings. Just like scratches on the floor will not disappear easily. In fact, my childhood was without the company of my parents, so I'm very envious of my classmates being picked up by parents. I remember that day very clearly, and the scratches in my heart disappeared. On December 1st, 2008, I was lying in bed and texting with friends, so I did not fall asleep. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the door closing. The person over there seemed a bit hurried. She didn't even have time to change shoes, so she ran da-da-da-da in high heels. Oh, it turns out that my mother is back. Of course, she always comes back so late. I'm really sad. December 1st is my birthday, and my mother cannot celebrate it with me because of a meeting. Unexpectedly, my door was pushed open. I opened my eyes quietly and peeked at her. She's still dressed as always. Her blonde hair is tied to an ordinary round head, and she has an elegant manner, but her small face is very delicate. Blue, tight-fitting suit with the charm of the British royal family. A pair of 8-centimeter white high heels walk through the streets of the city. Pressure and time never seem to touch her face. She seems to be a young girl from the cardamom era. But the appearance and thoughts of her eyes became mature after drip into the muddy waters of the workplace. This is my mother. I saw her sneak in because she was afraid to wake me up. Then she went to the bed and knelt, putting up the quilt for me, and then stroked my forehead with my thin white hands and smoothed my hair. Suddenly she said, baby, please forgive me for going out early and returning late every day. Forgive me for not being able to celebrate my birthday with you. Forgive me for being absent because of your growth. After a period of silence, she said again, the difference is the voice. I was tainted by crying and hoarse voices. Sorry, I'm also a mother for the first time, but I want to give you a better life. I ignore your growth, but please believe that I love you. Her voice is not loud. It seems a little cautious, but these words of her irrigated my dry heat and melted the hard ice in my heart. This is love. It took my mother a while to turn around and leave. I didn't know that I was lying in bed. She didn't know. I'm going to stop. She didn't know that I was lying in bed pretending to sleep, right, Wen Chen? She didn't know. But one sentence above. I didn't know that I was lying, right? She didn't know that I was lying. Good. And now this is like the essay we just read, because I think I thought that this was clear, right? Like, oh, when Chen's pretending to be asleep, her mom doesn't know she's asleep. That's why her mom is saying those things. So you do want to make sure that that's clear, okay? Like this was like Martha and Noor's examples in the other essay about making sure the narrative is clear. If it's not clear, the reader's kind of guessing. But anyway, yeah.
On the top, that one is saying the company, but it is a company. It's like with me. That one I was writing wrong. I forgot this one.
Got it. Got it. We could talk, I'll give you more. We can talk about grammar stuff in a second. There's also some Google Translate in here as well. Okay, so it took my mother a while to turn around and leave. She didn't know that I was lying in bed pretending to be sleeping. My face is covered with tears. Her words repeated in my ears. Suddenly, let go of my dissatisfaction with her over the years. At this moment, I just want to say to the world, my mother is the best mother in the world. She's fine, but she always lied to me that she was not tired, lied to me that she was relaxed. But I know that she perseveres and perseveres. So I will try my best to reduce her anger in the future. Being her daughter is the happiest thing in my life. When I got up the next day, my mother was early again leaving. I saw breakfast milk, 2 fried eggs and sausage, more food. I smiled warmly. I saw a note beside the plate that read, Chen, sorry mom broke my promise again. You eat breakfast before going to school. I promise to celebrate my birthday with you next year. Happy birthday, Mom. When I saw sorry mom broke my promise again, my eyes were wet up. Although she never called me baby and said I love you in front of me. I think I forgive my mother for not having time to celebrate her birthday with me because I know she loves me. She's been loving me in her own way, growing up all the way because of her. Have you ever thought about who did not help you when you fell but encouraged you to stand up again? Have you ever thought about who quietly got up on a cold winter night to pick up the kicked quilt for you? Do you want once when you were sick who stayed at the edge of the bed because you blushed your eyes? Have you even thought about who gave everything for you without thinking of anything in return? Yes, this person is our parents. I can't forget what my mother said to me in my ear. I want to find a blooming season, a sunny afternoon, holding 2 cups of coffee in hand, and then tell you my heart that I love you, Mother. On December 2nd, I told my mother what she thought in my ear. Mom made her promise, even though it was 1 day late. Today is not a sunny day, but in my heart is like a sunflower smiling happily to the sun. Mom helped me light the birthday candles. I stand in the middle of the cake, will make a wish, and then blow out the birthday candles. I told Mom I have something to tell you. I took out a letter I'd prepared. After taking a deep breath, I read, Mother guides me like a lighthouse. Mother is a diligent gardener, watering me with love and courage. Mother is like a burning candle illuminating my direction. Dear Mother, I have been without me for 16 years. In these 16 years, no matter whether you are by my side or by my side, no matter whether you are sour, sweet, bitter, or spicy, after reading the letter, I saw that my mother was already in tears. She hugged me, said nothing, just cried silently. In fact, I felt very sad because I had never said this to my mother so much. Finally, I expressed what I always wanted to express, but could not express. Wen-Shen. Oh my goodness. Martha's giving you the clapping hands.
Actually, because in China we write a lot of narrative essay, but some word I have to, you have to use a little bit Google to translate. That's why I worry about my grammar or the concept, the essay is
Yeah.
in China or something like that. So I'm not sure, what I mean?
Oh yeah, well, when I give you the feedback on the first draft, we can talk about it. Yeah, I think one thing I'd say right away, if you're thinking about grammar, Wen-Shen, there's some pronoun issues, like I, me, she, and possessive determiners, mine, her. There's some there's some issues there. But yeah, and then it's just sentence structure, right? Just like you were saying, writing in Chinese versus writing in English. But I think right away, the things that I absolutely love, all of the feeling, all of the emotion, you know, not everybody can express feeling when they're writing this way, Shannon, you did it so beautifully. I really could feel your heart in this essay, and that is a really big skill. That is fantastic. And I think the narrative was really clear. I think the narrative, what this story was about, right? What this story was about is very clear. It was my 16th birthday. I wanted to see my mom. My mom came into my bedroom. She thought I was asleep. She said these beautiful things that she'd never said to me when I was awake. The next day I gave her a letter. Like, that's kind of the narrative, right? Like, is that, am I right? That was what I understood.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Did it, and I'd love to hear from everybody now. Did everybody get that that was the beginning, middle, and end? Was that clear to people?
Yes, I love it. It was very nice.
It really was. It really, really was. Good. And again, even if you, so people jump in, right? Other students, if you guys want to jump in, but hopefully it's helpful for you guys to sort of see me respond to this, because this is how I'm going to grade your essays, right? This is how I'm going to give you feedback. So for me, that was what I said. First of all, I would say incredible job getting your heart into the writing. Incredible. Second, the narrative to me was very clear. What happens in this story was very, very clear. Also, I think the descriptive details were really beautiful. Of course, I love food, so I think about the breakfast. I think there were also another thing that I think Wen-Chen did really well with descriptive writing is quotes, right? She said, I thought. You also did something really, really nicely on that first page or the second page, I don't remember, but where you're saying, I always thought, and then we get almost like you're quoting, Wen-Chen's quoting her own brain, right? I think that's another great example of descriptive writing. I was thinking, and then we get sort of very detailed descriptions of what she was thinking at the time, right? And I'd love to hear from other people, what were other examples, descriptive writing examples that really stood out? We get more clothes.
He describes her mother like a candle and illuminating her road.
Yes, that paragraph where she describes her mother is really,
I think it is in the end.
yeah, when her mom comes in, where's that part? Will you scroll down? This one, yeah, the muddy water of the workplace, that part, yeah. Scroll up just a little bit, Wen-Chen. Little more. This one. She's still dressed as always. Her blonde hair is tied to an ordinary round head, and she has an elegant manner, but her small face is very delicate. Blue, tight-fitting suit with the charm of the British royal family. A pair of 8-centimeter high white high heels walk through the streets of the city. The pressure and time never seem to touch her face. She seems to be a young girl from the cardamom era. I'm guessing cardamom era is an era in Chinese history.
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. I don't know. Okay, but the appearance and thoughts of her eyes became mature after drip into the muddy waters of the workplace. This is my mother. I love that sentence, Wen-Chen. It's like Ruba was saying, you get these, there is another moment, Ruba, you're right, where she was describing, she's using a candle to describe, she's using a simile, she's using a metaphor, but those sentences where you describe what she looks like, and then just that simple sentence, this is my mother, just really phenomenal writing, right? You have all these descriptive sentences, and then you get this simple sentence where you're sort of saying like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, but again, it's why I love this class, this literature class, because it's a little bit of the art, right? Anyone could say, my mom was 5 feet tall, she had this color hair, whatever. But then when you add those descriptions, those descriptive details to this kind of like personal writing, a sentence as short as this is my mother. I don't know, just really, really lovely. And in that paragraph too, she said, baby, please forgive me. Those quotes, more examples of really powerful descriptive writing. Like you can really imagine this, what this scene looks like, even though we don't know what Wen-Chen's bedroom, we don't know, but you can imagine a dark bedroom, the door opens, this woman comes in and what she looks like, and really just beautiful, beautiful examples of,
This one we easily use this one describe the young girl in China. So that's
oh,
why.
I see. Got it. So a young woman, a young girl in China, you could say, oh, it's like a girl from this cardamom era.
Yeah.
And then this is a little grammar thing now then, Wen-Chen, but just so that's clear to the reader, you can capitalize, because it's like a proper noun then. You could say capital C cardamom and capital E era.
Okay.
Then that's like telling the reader, hey, this is a proper noun. This is some, even if the person doesn't know what the cardamom era is or when it happened in China, the reader understands, oh, it's something, you know, it's a proper noun. Okay, good. And before we end here, what's the theme? What's this story about? Wen-Chen, will you go back up to the first paragraph? What's this story about? Why do we care? Why did this story give us so much emotion? Rahila, did you unmute yourself?
The story was about she wants to always be with her mother. She
Okay.
miss her.
True. I think that's part of it. Will you scroll up to the title, Wen-Chen? Good. So I think Wen-Chen did a good job with this title. Rahila, yes, she wants to be with her mother, but even more than wanting to be with her mother, there's this idea of words. So what was that idea of words in this story, Rahila?
No.
Or
What as Tim?
I think so. Yeah. What about words? What do you remember about saying words or hearing words in this story? If you need help, does anyone want to help Rahila? Why are words important in this story? Ruba?
Words like love, and she felt her mother didn't like her, but she really liked her.
And she felt like her mother didn't love her because her mother didn't say she loved her, right? But then again,
And she was busy with her job.
Exactly. But then at the end, we get that beautiful letter that Wen-Chen gives her mother, where it's we also have these images of who was doing the gardening, of the lighthouse, of who picked instead of like holding you like a baby, taught you how to get back up, right? We get all these, we understand, okay, her mother didn't say I love you, but there were these actions that made it clear, right? And this story, the theme of this story, I'm getting goosebumps talking about this. The theme of this story is the author learning, understanding, right? Okay, just because mom didn't say I love you doesn't mean she doesn't love me. And that's a hard lesson to learn. I've got a friend, he was born in the US, but his parents are from Taiwan. And he says this all the time to me about like his parents never and I love that part in the story when Chen, where you're saying I'm from China. So, like, well, our parents, they love us and they take care of us, but they'll never like look you in the eye and say, I love you so much. It made me think of my friend Steve, because he's talked about this experience, being the child of Taiwanese immigrants. So I think the theme is very clear, Wen-Chen. I think the theme is very clear. I think the biggest, I'll give you feedback about this and we can talk about it, but when you revise, you have a week, Wen-Chen. What I'd say is put this in Grammarly, give it to a native speaker. The grammar, there's not huge grammar errors, but some of the grammar errors do make the theme a little less clear, right? Like I said, I felt like, oh, I think that when Chen is pretending to be asleep, but you should put that right at the beginning of those paragraphs when Chen, it has to be very clear. Like you say, I was texting my friends, add a sentence. I heard the door open, so I laid down. I pretended to be asleep. Make sure that that's clear at the very beginning of that narrative, because that wasn't as clear for me.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
So yeah, now this is just me giving this is just a writing conference now with Wen Chen, but I'd say, number one, make sure it's clear at the beginning of the narrative that you are pretending to be asleep. Don't wait to tell us until the second or third paragraph, and go to Grammarly, get a native speaker to look at it, get some grammar help, especially with, can you scroll down to page 3? For example,
That's a 4.
yeah, oh, that's good. On December 2nd. Let's look at on December 2nd. I told Mom, I took out a letter after taking the jet, I read. On December 2nd, I told my mother what she thought in my heart. See, that sounds like translation, because I don't know what that means.
It's like
But
I told my mom what
I felt
from my heart.
What you felt in your heart.
Yeah.
Okay, so then this is what I mean about the pronoun challenges you've got, Wen-Chen. So it shouldn't be she. I told my mother what I felt in my heart. Yeah. Mom made her promise. Mom made her promise. Mom made, oh, and this is just idiom now, kept her promise.
My mom, okay.
You make a promise when you say, tomorrow I will do this thing. And then you keep your promise when you do the thing.
Okay.
Today was not a sunny day, but it was like a fun. So Mom helped me light the candles. I stand in the middle of the cake, make a wish. I told Mom, I have something to tell you. I took out a letter I prepared. I have been with me. Okay, another one. Dear mother, I have been with me. So I think, dear mother, this should be you have been with me, right?
Where are you looking at?
Dear mother, it's right. It's, oh, yeah, look after, okay, see 16. In these 16 years, no matter, yeah, there it is. Dear mother. So instead of I have been with me, I think it should be you have been with me, right?
Oh, in Chinese, I've been with you.
I was gonna say, I think that the pronoun problems are Google Translate problems.
Okay.
So go back and read this. Just take a break, then go back and read this, but put on your English hat and see if the pronouns make sense.
Okay. Okay.
Because there are some pronoun, like I said, there are some pronoun issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll revise it a little bit.
Just look for grammar. I mean, the best news I can give students in 350, honestly, is when I say, hey, the biggest problem is your grammar. That's great, because we have like I said, we have a lifetime to fix our English grammar. But it's a bigger problem when a student has written a whole essay and there's no theme. That sucks. That's when it's like, ooh, then that's hard. That takes hard work. Fixing grammar, it's normal.
Okay.
I just want to again say, Ren Chen, thank you so much for sharing your essay with us and using it as an example. I think you gave hopefully it was helpful to hear me give you a little bit of feedback just for your own essay, but you helped, I think, and I'll say this to the other students who aren't here, when you share your examples in class, you are being so generous, you are helping the rest of your students. I just think it helps everybody so much. So thank you, Wen-Chen. Thank you.
I was worried about my theme is not clear because I'm not from the beginning, the whole day, like my mom not celebrate with me. I stand at the line and the next day. So that's why I'm not sure is it good or not.
To me, it was very clear. Ruba, was the theme clear for you?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the theme is, I was gonna use a sports metaphor. In the US, it's like, it's a home run, it's a slam dunk. To me, it's a home run. The theme is very, very clear.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Lovely, absolutely fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna take back the power now, and I'm gonna share my screen. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So usually, you know, at the end of class, all I say is what's due, but the only thing that's due is 1 week from now, you've got your first draft. And that's all I wanted to say. So any questions about the first draft or anything we talked about today, or any last questions before we're done? Because I think now it's just time, like Daryl, you haven't started yet, that's all good. But if you haven't started, I think it's just time to start writing, you know, unless you guys have any last second questions. We'll have fun. I hope you have fun. When was it fun to write?
Yeah.
I mean, I think my dream is that I can make a class for you guys where it's fun to do this type of writing. I hope that if you can stress less about the grade, I try to help you not stress about the grade. If you stress less about the grade, you can actually have fun. You know, this is your story. Have as much fun as you want when you're writing it. You know? That's it. So I can stay for a few more minutes if anybody has specific questions, but otherwise, thank you to my small group for being here. And if you're watching the recording, I hope you learned something that will help you in your writing. So bye, Ruba.
Bye.
Wen-Chen, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Bye.
Bye, Rahila. Good to see you. Thanks, Daryl. Good to see you too. Go back to work.
Thank you, Professor. See you next week.
Thank you. See you
Bye.
next week.
Thank you. I will fix my grammar on the essays.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I'm so grateful.
Bye bye.
See you.
See you.